letting people in, or Matt or anyone. Got it. This meeting is being live streamed. Let's go.
People are coming in now.
I can see it is being live streamed. Huzzah.
When we do start the
Yep.
Let me know, give me the signal when you'd like the recording to start when we get things underway officially. But hello everyone.
Yeah. Let's go, Matt. Let's start putting people in. And I'm gonna go wipe my glasses because I can't see anything.
Hello all. Welcome to PLANCKS.
Hello. Cue elevator or lift music.
Yes. We're just waiting for everyone to join. So keep waving.
Hello. Hello, so nice to see you coming in. How many are we up to? We're up to 69 of us. Fantastic. Let's all get comfy now. Lots of sitting to do over this weekend.
Off the team as well.
Rename.
Why? Really?
Yes, if everyone could please rename themselves, so you've got your name and in brackets, square brackets, preferably your team name, or if you're a volunteer, an observer, or a member of the PLANCKS OC, that would be great, please, if you could. Or just while we wait. If none of these apply to you, what on earth are you doing here? But welcome, nevertheless.
way. People can also put observer in brackets as well.
Yeah, if I didn't say observer, yeah, thanks, Anastasia. And if anyone sees Emma, oh, Dr. Carr, someone mark Dr. Carr as something special.
Hello, Anthony.
Oh, there you are, Emma. Let's make you a co-host. Oh, you've been made a co-host. There we go. Blammo. Where has he gone? Yeah, yeah. Someone just said if your team forgot a name. Please message me with your team name and the people that are in your team if you have not already submitted a team name, because you need them for the exam. Ah. Yeah, so you can message me on the Discord. You can just put it in the Discord channel if you want, and that would be great. Or email it to me. That would also be fantastic. Yeah, because there's a bit too many messages in this current Zoom chat for me to keep track of. What's the email? The email is planks2022@gmail.com. Yeah. Okay, it's a bit dark in here. I suspect many people only have clicked on the Zoom link now and realize that they have to register before actually joining in with us. So we'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll get started.
People are still trickling in.
Yeah. Can one of the committee check the live stream is working on YouTube, please. That'd be great. Or if,
It worked a couple of minutes ago.
is it fine? Yeah, okay, good. Wonderful. Okay. Right. Let's get cracking, and while people still trickle in, they can. Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2022 UK and Ireland Planks preliminaries. I am absolutely delighted to be introducing this year, because for the first time ever, there are 80 teams participating, yeah, which is record breaking. If I just go to the first slide, when this competition started in the UK and Ireland about 6 years ago, in 2017, which was the first one, there were only 3 teams that took part. And now we have 80 teams, and we cover every single branch of the UK and Ireland's IOP, which is absolutely fantastic. So I am delighted to welcome you all here today. And hopefully the next note, I'll go back to. As you probably saw there, that over the, oh, it's being recorded, okay. As you saw from the last few slide, that the first winners of this competition were Oxford. The next winners of the competition were Oxford. The winners after that were Kent, so huzzah, snails free forever. And then it was Oxford and Oxford again. But there's plenty of opportunity this year for someone else to win it. Planks is sort of a unique competition in that sense. The questions are written in such a way that anyone, no matter their ability and their skill, as long as you've done some form of university physics, you should be fine and be able to tackle the questions. We write the questions in a self-contained manner. So by just using some basic physics, maths and some logic, you should be able to do very well in the exam tomorrow. Just a quick note from me before I do some committee introductions. There are a few teams that have not given me team names. I will need them by tomorrow morning so that you can participate in the exam. Please either message me on Discord with the other members of your team, or email at planks2022@gmail.com. There are also a few rather interesting team names that will be getting a message and email from me later today that need to be changed. I won't repeat them on air, but some of you might know who you are, so they need to be changed. I did notice, looking at the contestants coming in, that there are a few team names that I remember, especially those that caused me so much trouble from Durham, who don't know how to register just once for your team and kept me up till 4 a.m. And it does seem that this year Durham is doing what they usually do with their rowing. They're coming in numbers rather than substance. That is a quote from the UCBC president. So nothing against rowing from me. Right, that's really it for me as an introduction. I'd just now like to introduce our wonderful committee. So, well, I'll invite them to introduce themselves. So, and you want to unmute and say what you do and things like that. So, Emma's here. If Emma's here, should we go with Emma first?
Hello, I'm Emma. I've been contacting academics to come and get them to speak to us and trying to get our talks kind of distributed a bit wider to school people as well.
Fantastic. And then we have Alexia.
Hi, I'm Alexia. I'm a PhD student at the University of Surrey, and I've been mainly focusing on all the communications, so like Instagram, Facebook posts. If you've seen any of those, if they encourage you to come, that was me. And I'm in charge of organising the social activities, so come along to the scavenger hunt and the quest that we have run.
Anastasia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anastasia. I'm Research Fellow at University College London. I've been working through the exam preparation, collecting problems, shaping it to the format of PLANCKS exam. I hope you will enjoy your exam time tomorrow and will find it intriguing and thought-provoking. Good luck.
Matt.
Hello, I'm Matt. I'm in charge of running the Discord server and the Minecraft server, so come play Minecraft with us later.
Molly, you didn't see that one coming, did you, Molly? You thought I was going to go down the list, but no. Keeping you on your feet. Molly, off you go.
Thanks, Anthony. Hi, I'm Molly. I'm a PhD student at the Max Planck Institute for Astronomy in Heidelberg, but from the UK, was here last year doing the Ken Plancks, so I'm still allowed. I've been the website coordinator and also sorting out coordination for the PhD student mingle and poster session. So I hope you find that useful.
James?
Hi, I'm James. I'm a lecturer at the Northeastern University in Boston. They have a London campus where I teach. Here, I down as Planck's advisor, which is basically just being in the background, making sure everything goes on track. So yeah.
And certainly last but not least, Julian, you want to say hello?
Thanks. Yeah, my name is Julian. I'm the Student Engagement Officer at the Institute of Physics. I'm listed as a treasurer, so pay for things, and have supported the team. It's my third PLANCKS. PLANCKS was the first event I attended and helped host when I joined the Institute of Physics. Seems some time ago. And yeah, it's been a delight working with everyone here to bring you this fantastic competition.
Wonderful. And there we go. So I now invite Alexia and Emma, if you want to go over the program for the weekend, and then I'll talk about one of the events that has to be postponed.
Yeah, so you should all have a copy of the program, and we'll announce it during the event on Discord and basically anywhere you look. So the main important part of the event is the exam, of course, and we'll have Anastasia talking a bit more about the exam in a minute. So that is happening tomorrow with the exam Q&A session, followed by the actual exam. And then the other important compulsory part of this event is the closing ceremony when we announce all the results, and that will be on Sunday at 1 p.m. And then Emma's going to tell you about all our amazing guest speakers.
So our guest speakers, you can see them listed here. Our first one is Professor Dame Jocelyn Burnell, who we're very lucky to have. And she's going to talk about pulsars, lots of astronomy, nuances, colleagues, K-band and stars. And if you're wondering why there are so many words in that title, they spell out Planck's, which is a theme that someone else has picked up as well. So our second guest lecture is by Dr. Sam Carr, and he's going to speak about Ohm's law, what aren't they telling you? Then we have a talk by Dr. Jenna Meinecke, which is also PLANCKS themed in the title. And that's physicists doing laboratory astrophysics using the NIF to create cool science. With cool spelt with a K to distinguish it from being cold science, because it's actually very, very hot. Our fourth talk is from Dr. Caroline Shenton-Taylor, who is going to talk about scientific adventures from inside a sphere. And then we have Dr. Francesca Chadade on Friday, no, not Friday, Sunday, who is going to speak to us about dark matter and creativity in science. So I'm going to pass back to Alexia to tell you more about the PhD.
Yeah, so other parts of our event on Sunday morning, if you get up nice and bright and early at 9 o'clock, then you can come along and listen to PhD students presenting their posters and also telling you what doing a PhD is like. So they're PhD students who studied physics at university, but they might not necessarily be doing physics now, just to show you the wide range of options you have as undergrads for if you want to do a PhD. We also on Saturday have a couple of workshops that are happening in the afternoon. We have the PLANCKS workshop, where we really would like someone to come and learn what it takes to host the UK and Ireland preliminaries, because we want someone at preferably university to host this event next year, preferably in person, perhaps hybrid, who knows. But if you want to help, if you want to be in charge of actually chairing it and hosting it, come along. If you want to just be on the side assisting, doing 5 minutes here and there, come along, and we'd just like anyone to come and help. And we also have the Meet Your IOP workshop. Julian will be talking more about the IOP in a minute. Next, we have the timetabled social activities. So we have this evening, after Jocelyn Burnell's talk, we have the quiz, which will be in Gathertown, and do come along. None of these social activities are compulsory, but the more people, the better they're going to be. And I'm sure you'll enjoy these events. So that's the quiz, and the quiz masters will be Molly and Anthony.
Just to add to that the quiz and all of these events have prizes attached to them. The quiz, there is £200 worth of book vouchers to be won, and everything else, there are prizes ranging between £5 and £50 worth of Amazon vouchers are up for grabs. So come along, win an event, slay the Ender Dragon, get some money, have a good time.
Yeah. So later this evening, we have the scavenger hunt, where you're in teams going around looking for A to Z of physics objects. So come along to that. That's also in Gathertown. And then we have the quest, which will run on Saturday evening. We'll run a very short introduction to it, and then you'll just be in teams working by yourself to try and crack the puzzles and get to the end. And then we have the Physicists versus Ender Dragon 2, which will be run by Matt in Minecraft. As well as these timetabled social activities, we have a few bonus competitions happening in the background. Anthony, please may you change the slide. Thank you. So we have photograph competitions. We'll be announcing them during the weekend. The first one's already been announced. We want your photographs of the stormy weather today, please, because we all know that there's a storm happening. And we're amazed you're still here and haven't got power cuts and haven't been blown over. So please do submit your photographs, and please do react to everybody else's photographs. Yeah. And then we have the Minecraft building competition, which is also run by Matt. He'll be discussing how you enter for that. Then the best title page. So when you submit your exams, submit a title page as well. You can start working on it now. Anything you like. The rules are in the program for it. It could be images, it could be drawings, anything. And then the funniest drawing that someone makes in Scribble.io, you can enter even on behalf of someone else, put someone else's drawing there, just say whose it was. And then finally, the best social media post. So post something on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, just hashtag us in. might be about your merchandise or anything. So I think that's all from me, and I'll hand back to Anthony.
Thank you, Alexia. Just in case anyone doesn't have it, you can use the QR code here to scan and join our Discord. And maybe Matt can put the Discord in the Zoom chat as well for anyone that wants to join it. Brilliant. So the exam. So I'll just ask Anastasia to give you a very quick overview of the exam format, but the time to go over that really is tomorrow morning at the exam Q&A. Anastasia, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you. So the boring bit of the PLANCKS, but the most competitive one where you actually can prove that you are the best physicist around the UK and Ireland, is the exam tomorrow morning. And the plan is kind of pretty simple. You'll have to join Zoom and you'll have to go for our website to get the exam papers to be solved. We have several householding requirements, so at least one person should stay in your team breakout room throughout the entire exam time. We have some break in the middle, which shouldn't be spent for solving the problems. And you'll have half an hour submission period after 3 p.m., during which you'll have a chance to put your solutions to the separate exam folder on the cloud. Actually, the main detailed information gonna be elaborated to you tomorrow morning. We have a Q&A session before the tomorrow morning talk, so please wake up early if you have a list of questions for us to ask. We do insist on you not using any additional materials. Of course, we cannot check it and go to each other's houses, checking that you don't use your books or anyone's help. But the idea of the exam is to be in kind of fair conditions, so nothing is used apart your own brain, your own memory, and the paper is designed in the way so you actually have everything written down in front of you. You won't need anything else, but we can allow calculators, watches, maybe some tablet to make your script being written on the screen, not on the paper and scanned. There's both options are available. We'll be sit with you on the Zoom call tomorrow throughout both exam parts. So whenever you have any question, you should just shout out and ask, and they'll all be sorted. I think it's all from me. If there is anything else to add from Anthony?
No, I think you covered it all there, but please do come along to the exam Q&A in the morning. If you've done PLANCKS before online, we have to implement a slightly different breakout room procedure this time round because there's so many of you and Zoom can't actually cope with the amount of teams that we have participating. So there is a plan, but it will only be announced tomorrow morning. So please do come along to that. Yes, and I think Anastasia covered everything that needs to be spoken there. So now I'd like to introduce Julian to come back and just talk quickly about the IOP. If Julian's around.
Yep, sure. Thank you, team. I'm going to share my screen briefly. Okay, and if somebody could confirm verbally that the slide is a red screen with Join the Heart of the Physics Community.
It's presenter mode.
You're on presenter mode.
Ah. Let's stop that. Bear with.
It's good now.
Okie dokie. Right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to PLANCKS 2022. Who'd have thought? My name is Julian Gassardo. I'm the Student Engagement Officer and a proud member of the PLANCKS 2022 OC. I did take off my t-shirt, but I've got another one underneath, so, you know, for life. I'm going to be talking this just for a few minutes, a short presentation to introduce you to the Institute of Physics. If you're not already involved with our work, and highlight some of the support that we provide to undergraduates that enables you to make the most of your time at university and hopefully help you to be better prepared for your next steps. And as well as signpost some existing members on the call. Hello, hello, hello. To some of the fantastic resources and opportunities that we have coming up in the next couple of months and beyond. So to those of you who are not members, I'd like to really just warmly invite you to join the IOP today and tell you why it's important that you should, and if you've joined already, thanks for coming along and for joining. So I'm speaking to you from the Institute itself at High Headquarters in King's Cross. So we're soon to reopen to the public once again. Please do swing by when possible. When the doors open. It's a great place to work. It's a fantastic building. It's a great place to meet other physicists, do some studying, work, charge your phone, use the members lounge before heading off around the country if you're going on from King's Cross. So who are we? The Institute of Physics is the professional body and learner society for physics in the UK and Ireland. As it says on screen, we're here to raise public awareness and understanding of physics, support fundamentally the development of a very diverse and inclusive physics community. We're a charity and a membership body, and we're here to ensure that physics delivers on its exceptional potential to benefit society. As a membership body, we are the sum of our parts. Yourselves, hopefully, by the end of this weekend, if you're not already. So what do we do? As I mentioned, we are our members, and our members are active everywhere in education, in academia, business, and the public sector, wherever physics is being used to transform our lives and society. The thing about the Institute is we do quite a lot of different things. We accredit your university departments to make sure that they are teaching the right physics in the right way. We will work with government to recruit and support physics teachers. Our policy team publish lots of reports and research on the state of the industry and on different sectors and the workplace. We try to raise equity and diversity in physics through the Juno program, the Limitless campaign, and many other things. And fundamentally, we are here to look after our members, support their career aspirations, and provide professional development. Essentially, see the Institute as a bridge. We're a platform for you to network, collaborate, meet others, and connect to help you, hopefully, shape physics as we go. So as the professional body for physics, we do have a couple of member grades. Just get your head around what it means to be a member of the Institute. You would join an associate member, and that's for undergrads, apprentices, trainees. And the idea is we will support you through every stage of your career and enhance your experience wherever you are, whatever you're doing. So that's fundamentally about connecting with other members. Our members are key to that. A community of like-minded people. So meeting them, collaborating with them, and helping each other. Associate members, hopefully many of you, if not all of you by the end of this, I hope, they will become members upon graduation, and then following that, go on to become fellows as you make a distinguished contribution to your fields, as I have little doubt you will. And anyone can join these three categories. It's our job to support you to get there and help you develop, hopefully, throughout your career and achieve your ambitions. So My mantra is really to try and explain how we support you to do this. Is community, knowledge, and professional development. And what you can see on screen is a few things that we provide and that our members are actively organising and working in to access that. It's honestly something for everything, quite a lot. So Physics World, in terms of developing knowledge, is an incredible resource. I don't need to tell you too much about it. It's the main way to find out news and developments in physics, published by our sister organisation, IOP Publishing, who support us to do the work that we do. We have tons of member communications and news, but also lots of access to journals and our bookstore for members. In terms of communities events, we have 50 special interest groups, but most niches of physics where you can take part in their activities. These are people like yourselves 10, 15, 20 years down the line, organising relevant activities and talks and so on for each other. And our conferences team and the branches organise hundreds of events every year, in person, online, huge range for you to discover. Quick bit about support for the future, things to bear in mind. There's a lot of ways you can develop your career now at university. Take this time to discover the landscape of physics, be able to make better, more informed decisions. And I would really encourage you to have a look at the events page, events.iop.org or iop.org/events now. But also Physics World Jobs, that's the main jobs board in engineering and physics. And gain some experience doing a bit of volunteering. We host through events, festivals, and in schools, a huge amount of ways to get involved, build skills and experiences for your CV. Quick heads up for members, a career development hub, do go and check it out. Hundreds of resources, videos, tools, including our recently published PhD guide, 65-page guide, invaluable asset, and our guide to wellbeing and resilience. And I'm really pleased and excited to announce that our member platform is going to be hosting an on-demand service for all the career, skills, and physics conferences and events that take place through the IOP, an incredibly wide range, which is actually an essential, brilliant resource that I would encourage you all to take a look at, as well as for catching up on the student community events that we organise, and the webinars and so on. Incidentally, on Physics World, if Storm Eustace Willick, you've received your merch packs, you will have seen the Careers 2021 guide. Do check it out, read it, use it. It's a fantastic resource for discovering the sector. And members can expect the next one, Careers 2022, the new published guide, to arrive by the end of this month, if it hasn't already. Just going to talk briefly about our student community. You, yourselves, are a core part of what we do at the Institute. It's a really broad network of societies, campus ambassadors, and representatives from each region, and lots of volunteers hosting regular activities and events like PLANCKS. My hope is that many of you will go on to take part in the various opportunities and activities to build skills to your CV and help you land your first job. We have a really active membership. It means that we're collaborating all the time with students so that hopefully this stuff is relevant to you and useful. And that means we will fund your events if you're part of a physics society. We'll give you support, resources. So do tell your physics societies if they aren't already to affiliate with IOP. There's a lot of stuff out there for them. And think about joining the IOP as a campus ambassador next year. Right, swiftly moving forward. What does that mean in practice? Some events coming up. We've just finished some machine learning and Python webinars. In February, we've actually got another short course in Python, Introduction to Python, a series of masterclasses, which I'm really excited about, and a fantastic 2-day summer skills event alongside PLANCKS and CAPS and all the other things that we do And keep an eye out for your campus ambassadors. They'll probably be organising something this term as well. Lots and lots to join. And there are opportunities constantly for our members to get involved and actually shape these events and activities. So at this stage, I would ask you all, if we were in person, to turn and look at your teammates. But instead, I'm just going to invite you to have a quick scan through the gallery, because there is quite a lot of us here. Each team here is a nucleus, a group that is capable of organising and hosting a PLANCKS event in future. Something that brings together your peers to meet the community, to discover physics and build professional skills and experiences for your careers. And I think the OC can testify that the rewards for hosting something like this are really significant. You know, personally, it's about making friends, about challenging yourselves, as well as having vital experiences for your CVs and make you stand out to employers. It's a genuine demonstration of your passion for physics, taking part in and getting involved in events like these. So, screen sharing once more. Just double check. That's the right one. Okay. So, to this end, I'd really like all of you to consider and think hard about taking part in hosting PLANCKS or similar events which the IOP supports each year with funding and resources, and myself. Whoops. Because you can all do it and bring something like this to life. It's a lot of fun doing it. So please do join the PLANCKS family and support it in future. We'll be holding a workshop tomorrow, 4 to 5, and in addition, I'll be hosting something on Sunday during the PhD session on Gather for anyone interested in our other student community events, including the summer skills. Right. Finally, to wrap things up, become a member this weekend. Really encourage all of you if you haven't already. Joining us, I think, is about joining something that's bigger than your degree and whatever you're going through at the minute. It's about being part of something big that connects to the wider community and making a difference to society. So please help us create opportunities for you to share your passion and be an advocate for physics. Costs just 15 quid a year, and the good news is we've fixed it at £15 the first 3 years after graduation. So, right, honestly, enjoy this wonderful event over the next 2 days. Get stuck in, get a lot more out of it the more you take part. And yeah, I really hope to see you at other future events of ours throughout the year. Employers recognize that it changes and shapes your kind of personal experience as a physicist and diversifies your toolkit. So, like I said, see you tomorrow at the workshop for PLANCKS, and also we've got to meet the IOP straight after that, 5 to 6, and our session on Sunday. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks to the OC for letting me ramble on. Good luck this year, the most competitive PLANCKS ever. Goodness me. I'm going to hand you on to James Neller, who has stewarded PLANCKS for a number of years now and seen it grow to become this incredible event that you're enjoying today. He has incidentally recently become a chair of the IP's branch for the London and South East, and I think is a fantastic example of how getting involved in PLANCKS, getting involved in extracurricular physics and IP activities can really support your own career and take you places. So thanks for listening, everyone. Best of luck. See you soon.
Thanks for that, Julie. Great info. And I do just want to echo what Julian said. So I joined the IEP the first year of my university studies, started organising the events with them, and never once regretted it, never looked back. It was just as beneficial for me as the whole university degree, doing it alongside it. So I would really recommend getting involved, getting in, and being part of something like PLANCKS. So I was there in the first year 6 years ago with the 3 teams in one room at Imperial to now with over 80 online. It's just really great, personally. But I'm not here to ramble on about the past. I'm here to talk about IAPS, which I'm going to ramble on about the past of IAPS instead. The president will come along on the closing ceremony and talk to you more about what they're doing now and their current events. But I just wanted to mention it at the beginning while you're all here and still, excited for the weekend before the exam starts. That, because you may not have heard about it, IAPS is the International Association of Physics Students. Everyone here is an IAPS member. The IOP is a great part of it. They represent the UK and Ireland, both countries. So that just automatically, if you're a member of the IOP, you're a member of IAPS, and you can go along to all of their events. And I do mean events. They do plenty throughout the year, all in many different countries, both in person and online, and they are wonderful. And it's really worth getting into and looking out on what they do. And if you can go to one, it will be great. IAPS is a student organization, Champion Physics, and I do mean student, is fully run by student volunteers for students. That's their motto. And it's everything they do is just a great way to, there we go, for physics students by physics students. Yeah, usually I time that better, but Anthony wasn't quite on the ball. So, and it's a great way not only to boost your CV saying you organize a 300-person conference like the OC has today, but it's a great way just to meet other students, your peers around the world, and be able to actually join the international family and network. IAPS, date back to 1986, a big long history now, and they've been doing events every year since then. And 1986, it seems fair, but it was actually quite a different world back then. Technology is different. You would never think about, doing an online call here. They barely had computers. There was no phones. Not that everyone had. It's a different world, but there was a group of students who felt that they wanted to get together with others around the world and actually build something for themselves, for the whole community. It was the height of the Cold War, so lots of tensions, just like there is now. And they wanted to promote peaceful collaboration in physics, and that was, IAPS was their way to do it all. They started what's now known as the International Conference of Physics Students, the IAPS flagship event that happens every year. And they all got to there, and there was such a success in Hungary that first year that a year later they birthed IAPS. And that has been going strong ever since. And year on year, they promote the peaceful collaboration, that's their aims, and the champion all physics students from many different areas and get everyone that needs to join and promote the opportunities you can have. So I'm just going to leave that there with the motto again, for physics students by physics students, because that does really sum up IAPS for me. It is all about you guys, and if you want to get involved, go ahead, and it's relies on the keenness of its members, and it's just a great thing to get experience to get involved in. I think my rambling is a lot shorter than Julian's, but you'll hear more about IAPS throughout the weekend. And I think the next person I should hand off to is actually the Vice President of IAPS, Cyrus, who wants to talk to you about the international final. So this is PLANCKS, the physics competition that IAPS created about 9 years ago now. And this is just the heat for it. The winners of this will go on to compete in Germany for the international final. And Cyrus, if you want to jump on and start talking about that.
Sure, thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
Perfect introduction. Yes, I'm the person who is doing all these events and organizing it for you, and I hope you will join for every IAPS event. I think I cannot share slides while another participant is sharing the slides, or better, a host is sharing the slides.
Julian just needs to make you a co-host so that you can share slides.
That would also be awesome. Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, now I can. Okay, beautiful. I hope now you can see something. Perfect. So, welcome everybody from Munich. I'm welcoming you from the side of the true PLANCKS 2022 OC, because now we're talking about the finals. I'm sitting here where I hope all of you want to be in 3 months in Munich, and we are waiting for you to join. Thanks first to the organizing committee of the UK preliminary for having me and for having the OC in general. So PLANCKS 2022 in a nutshell. Let's look at some statistics. We will have 30 in-person teams. So we ask the winner of this preliminary to in-person come to Munich and meet 30 other teams from other countries in the world. 10 online teams from in total 34 countries, 25 students organizers caring about you and the event, and 20 in-person observers, and on top of that, online observers. We have 4 days of exciting program, plus a complete extra day you can book, and one big sustainable PLANCKS experience. And it is the first, as you can imagine, IEPS in-person event, IEPS major in-person event since 2019, because we were very, very hardly struck by the pandemic. So looking at the 34 countries, we're not only talking about Europe, we're talking about America, we're talking about Asia, we're talking about countries in Africa, and of course, a lot of Europe. So you will meet people from around the world if you win this national preliminary here. So what will await you if you come to Munich? We will have guest lectures, we will have poster sessions, we will have workshops, lab visits, we will have a city rally, and of course, a lot of social program, of course, and last but not least, the big PLANCKS final competition in the Saturday morning for 3 to 4 full hours. For our online program, we will have also the guest lectures and the workshops and the lab visits. We will have only exclusively for the online participants, since social programming is not that nice online. If we go to the beer garden, we can't share our beer with you, sadly. So we organize for you in-person cooking shows for German food. And of course, we will still have the PLANCKS competition, because we have the chance, due to our hybrid format, that we can invite the biggest preliminaries around the world. So in case the UK has enough members, enough participants in their preliminary to send a second team as online participants, as an online team, where then you will have to go to your local university and locally in a room as everyone else in the same conditions write the exam. For our scientific program, we are absolutely packed with a lot of great physicists. We will have Reinhard Genzel, who's the 2020 Nobel Prize winner. We will have Sibylle Günther, Ignacio Sirac, Adriana Palfi-Boots, all of them absolute experts on their field of physics. And we're on the patronage of Harald Lesch. For the venue, we will invite you to the beautiful University of Munich, the Ludwigs-Maximilians University. Everybody who has been in Munich told me that this is one of the most beautiful universities they have ever seen, and I can definitely assure you it is. Our hostel will be the Wombat City Hostel, very closely located to the East train station of Munich. The tickets, as soon as you checked in at the event, at the first registration at the event in person, we will provide you all the transfers with public transport. So let's look at sustainability. PLANCKS 2022 is going to be the first in-person CO2 complete neutral event of IEPS. Our approach has 2 main points. One is the reducing of the emissions where possible. So we encourage you to use trains instead of planes, in case that's possible. I don't know, I haven't seen a bridge to France from the UK yet. Maybe they'll build one in the next 3 months. We focused on plant-based food, and we try to print as less material as possible and carefully choose our goodies. On the other hand, where emissions are unavoidable, we try to compensate with balancing the intercontinental flights and the power and the food consumption. So please follow us on our social media to stay absolutely up to date with the latest news. I'll later on also post all our contact data in the chat so you can stay up to date. Even if you don't win the preliminary, you can still join us as an observer, still get the guest lectures, still get all the awesome program we have that is online. And our organizing committee, all these people are very happy to welcome you and see you in Munich.
Thank you very much, Cyrus, for giving us that overview of what the winners of this UK and Ireland preliminaries can get. And just to let you know that the team that does go off to Munich to represent the UK and Ireland will have their travel fees paid and their accommodation and the registration fees all paid for them as well. And we'll talk more about prizes as we get towards the closing ceremony. Just on one other note, that when you actually go to take the exam tomorrow, you might notice that there's 3 logos that you recognize, but 1 that you don't. And that's because this year we've actually done a joint preliminary with the university, with Singapore and their PLANCKS entry. So after PLANCKS will be given access to all of their talk recordings, so you'll also be able to view those. We are slightly behind schedule, but that's okay, because what we'll do now, before we go on to our next items, rather than the tea breakers, we're going to try and do the group photo. So now someone that's better at this than me last year can probably try and do this, but if everyone could please put on their cameras if you want to, make sure you have your PLANCKS t-shirts on, and we'll try and get this group photo done. Oh, there we go. James has got his PLANCKS t-shirt on. Julian's there, yeah. And so if everyone could just put on your cameras if you want to put your cameras on. If not, make sure they're turned off, because we're going to take a photo. This will be my entry to the photo competition, Alexia, and hopefully I'll win it. Yeah, okay. So if everyone unmutes, okay, we're going to do I'll do a countdown, and then I'll flick through the old Zoom screens and get everyone's camera. So everyone, after the countdown of 3, smiling faces, keep smiling until I say stop. Keep smiling. Stop smiling. That's the one. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Smile. Oh, there we go. You're going to hear me thing go clink. You can stop smiling. Well done, everyone. Thank you very, very much. And now we're actually just back on schedule. So that was excellent. So we're not going to have a tea and coffee break now. We're going to have that after our first lecture. So now I would like to ask James, who is the chair of the London and South East branch, to introduce a special guest who's joining us for the opening ceremony.
Thanks, Anthony. Me again. So I have the privilege to introduce a very important person to the IOP. It's Professor Julia Rowland. She's an experimental physicist currently at the University of Glasgow, where she's the director of the institute. She's mostly known for her work in gravitational wave detection. She was made given an MBE for services to science by the Queen in 2011. Received the Hoyle Medal and Prize for the Institute of Physics in 2016 for recognition of her pioneering assets for gravitational waves. And what's great, she was in 2016 also awarded the Chief Scientific Advisor to the Scottish Government. And this year, 2021, became the President of the Institute of Physics. So it's my pleasure to introduce Julia Rowland.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and to see the long list of names that I can see in the participants. So many people engaged. That's fantastic. And I really want to thank you for the invitation to come along and say a few words of welcome on my part to PLANCKS 22. I understand this year's event is shaping up to be a bumper set of activities. So I know you've got a lot to look forward to over the next couple of days. And I am indeed extending this welcome on behalf of the Institute of Physics, wearing my hat as current Institute of Physics President. It's clear that you, by being here, are already part of the physics community, and it's a global physics community. And one that I have hugely enjoyed being part of throughout my career, right from being an undergraduate physicist, you know, all these years, it's been fantastic. And it is a community of people who share their enthusiasm for physics and everything that physics can do, which more than ever, I think is really, really important. I am, and I hope you don't mind, going to shamelessly suggest to you that you'll also consider joining the Institute of Physics and being part of the Institute of Physics community. The IOP is a wonderful organisation. It's both the professional body and the learned society for physicists. We have you know, a remit that covers Ireland, the UK, and of course we have international members as well, of all kinds, physicists of all kinds, from students, people working in industry, teachers, academics, you know, people where physics touches their activities in a whole number of different ways. And we are here to support our members. And for students, that means a whole range of things. It's everything from career support, engagement with research areas you might be interested in, new networks, you know, like the PLANCKS network here, but networks of different kinds to be part of, and development opportunities. I joined as a student actually and benefited from a travel bursary. I remember it well from the IOP to help me travel to meetings. And ever since then, the IOP has felt to me like my professional home. It's really been a home for my physics interests all that time. So I do hope you'll consider joining us. Everybody would be most welcome. So it's you know, as I say, a privilege to be here and to talk to you about that, and an honour to be here to introduce our speaker. So our guest speaker, again, who'll speak shortly, is Professor Dame Jocelyn Bell Burnell. And Jocelyn is, I think it's fair to say, a legend. She is well known for her work actually as a graduate student in radio astronomy in Cambridge, which opened up a new branch of astrophysics with, you know, a really important discovery in terms of identifying the first pulsar signals. And that's a research area that continues to be of the highest interest today, including in my own area in gravitational waves, where we're working on searching still for gravitational waves from pulsars. So it has been an important area throughout the years. She's subsequently worked in many different branches of astronomy. She's now, again, has a visiting position in Oxford, is Chancellor of the University of Dundee, and as well as being one of my predecessors as President of the Institute of Physics, was also President, the first female President of the Royal Society of Edinburgh here in Scotland, so strong Scottish connections. She's in huge demand as a speaker, I know, so we're absolutely delighted that she's able to be here today, and I shall hand over to Jocelyn.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Can you hear me okay? Right.
Yes, we can.
See if I can get the PowerPoint up.
Whilst you're doing that, I'm just going to run through the slightly boring stuff that goes alongside the talks. So we're very grateful to Professor Dame Jocelyn Bell Burnell today for joining us to talk about pulsars, lots of astronomy, nuances, colleagues, K-band and stars. We'd like to take this opportunity to remind all participants and observers to keep your microphone muted and your camera off for the duration of the talk, and also for the question session. If you have any questions, you can post them in the Zoom chat or on the Discord server. And if you're watching this talk live on YouTube, then you can put them on the chat on the YouTube stream. Our moderators will collect these questions, they'll pass them to me, and the selection will be asked at the end of the talk. So please don't turn on your microphones to ask any questions at any stage. Thank you very much for the introduction, Sheila, and I will hand over to you for your talk now.
Thank you very much. Let's see. So are you seeing my first slide?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Good, excellent. Thank you very much. I had a rather catch-all title. I'm going to try and touch on all the aspects of it. But I'm also going to tell you a little bit about pulsars and how they were found. Sheila has alluded to this briefly. So it's a story from radio astronomy. There are some interesting backstories where pulsars were nearly discovered. One of the delightful things that happens is that every so often somebody sidles up to me at a conference and says, you know, I nearly discovered pulsars, and tells the story. And there's a lot of thought-provoking stuff in those stories. So I'm going to talk, I hope not too long, about the discovery, and then ultimately it's about what else I've done in the 40 or 50 years since. I did an undergraduate degree in Glasgow, same place as Sheila Rowan. I had at that stage come from Northern Ireland via a school in York to Glasgow. So I'd very much been in the north and west of the country. I ended up the only female in the honours physics class, which was a bit tough, but survived, and arguably it was useful for later on in life. I get a place, very much to my surprise, in Cambridge to do a PhD in radio astronomy. And the first thing that happens is I get given a set of tools, and these are the actual tools. Still have them. They were the first tools I owned. They're not microelectronics tools, you'll appreciate. They're full-size wire working tools. So this sends an interesting message to a new PhD student. And indeed, I spent the first 2 of my 3 years helping build a radio telescope. This photograph's taken near the end of the process. My particular job was all the cables, all the connectors, putting lots of plugs on coax cables. And here we are out literally in the field, because I have some very long coax cable which stretches all the way down there to that other little hut. And sitting in these little huts in midwinter, I've been putting plugs and sockets on the ends of those cables. Expensive air-spaced cable that could not be coiled up and taken indoors, hence working outside. Although my caption says typical working conditions for a PhD student, don't take that too literally, but I would say expect anything, including travel. The radio telescope I was building worked at 81.5 megahertz, over 2,000 antennae, over 1,000 wooden posts, almost 200 kilometers of wire and cable, and this is the finished product. And it looks homemade because it is homemade. You'll recognize the copper wire that's been oxidized. So the antennae run along like this. This is bringing the signal down from the antennae onto more twin wire and ultimately into coax cables. The wooden posts are simply there to keep it all up out of the wet grass. So it's a bit like a diffraction grating at radio wavelengths with lots and lots of, rows of slits. So rows and rows and rows of antennae. During my final year project in Glasgow, I learned to use transistors, turn up at Cambridge, and they're still using valves, vacuum tubes. They felt transistors were noisy and unreliable. They did ultimately change, but it did feel a bit like a step backwards. The idea of this array was to find more quasars, quasi-stellar objects. They were very sexy objects at that stage. They were fairly newly discovered. There was only about 20 of them known, and it wasn't a big enough sample. They were known to be very, very compact, small angular diameter. And this top diagram here, there's a quasar, which is way, way up, in your ceiling, really. And here's the radio telescope down on the ground. The sun is off to the left and the solar wind is blowing out, and it's ionized gas. and it's not smoothly ionized gas. It's got clouds of increased electron density. And these clouds act a bit like a diffraction grating, only it's a moving diffraction grating. So what you pick up at the radio telescope is a signal that keeps fluctuating. And note the time scale on a fraction of a second. Radio galaxies, the other main kind of radio source, were much more extended, and you'd see them through several blobs and several gaps. And the blobs blowing past wouldn't have the same effect. They'd give a steady signal. So it's a neat technique for picking out quasars. You have to use a short time constant, 1/10 of a second, in order to pick up these fluctuations. That makes the signal to noise worse. To make the signal to noise bigger, you have to build a very big antenna. And that's why that whole thing was 4 acres, 57 tennis courts. And I helped build the radio telescope. It took 2 years, 6 of us, 2 years. And then at the beginning of my final year, the others drifted away and I was left to operate the telescope. At that stage, the University of Cambridge had 1 computer. It wasn't made with transistors, it was made with valves, vacuum tubes, and it occupied a whole room. It had memory less than a good laptop for the whole University of Cambridge. And obviously very few people could have time on it. We didn't have time on it. The data came out on rolls and rolls of paper chart, 30 meters a day, 4 days to scan the sky, that's 120 meters. And I ran it for 6 months, so I had 3 miles of this paper chart, or 5 kilometers. And I'm finding lots of quasars, lots of scintillating quasars, but occasionally there was a signal that showed up that I couldn't make sense of. Come on, where's my cursor? Here it is. So here's the signal I couldn't make sense of. Here's some low-level interference. And you can see that the two don't look the same. It doesn't look like interference, and it didn't look like a quasar either. You'll just have to believe me on that one. Why doesn't it look like interference? Well, interference spikes go up and down. These go mainly up. Interference spikes, you can see chart paper between the spikes. Here you can't. So that's why it looks different. And in saying that, you're actually doing Fourier analysis. When you say the spikes on the interference signal go up and down, you're talking about the amplitudes. When you say they only go up for the funny signal, you're talking about amplitudes. When you say you can see chart paper between the spikes of the interference, you're saying it's lower frequency than that. And Fourier analysis is basically asking what frequencies and what amplitudes are present, but you can do it unconsciously by eye. Now, this particular signal wasn't always there. About once in every 7 or 8 times that I surveyed that bit of sky. But after a bit, I twigged that it was always coming at the same right ascension from the same part of the sky. And at that point, I went to my thesis advisor, Tony, and said, look, Tony, I've got this funny signal. What do you think it is? And he rightly observed, well, it's all jammed into about a 1/4 inch. You can't really see what's going on. We need an enlargement. And with chart paper technology, enlargement is easy. You run the chart paper faster under the pen, and it all gets spread out. Fancy that. Snag is you couldn't leave the chart running at that speed all the time, or it would get through a roll of paper every 20 minutes. And guess who would live at the observatory day and night, putting a fresh roll of paper in every 20 minutes. So no, the grad student has to go out to the observatory shortly before this bit of signal is due to transit, switch to a higher speed chart, and then switch back to normal afterwards. And I did that for a month, and I made high-speed recordings of receiver noise and got nowhere. And my thesis advisor got crosser and crosser. And then one day I got it. This particular slide has several things on it. Along the bottom are 1 second time pips. Rugby used to broadcast them, and they were very useful. Here's the signal I picked up on that famous day. It's got a string of pulses, and they're equally spaced. They're about 1 1/3 seconds apart. They're not there all the time, but when they are there, they're quite short, sharp pulses. So it's some funny sort of interference, isn't it? But we ask a colleague with another radio telescope to see if they can see these things. And after a false start, they do. And it's obviously not a fault of my equipment. It's something up there in the sky. But it looks like interference. Is it a satellite in a funny orbit? Can't find a funny orbit that mimics the 23-hour, 56-minute sidereal day. And then I find a second and a third and a fourth. Unfortunately, I nicknamed the first one LGM for Little Green Men. And so the other three had to be LGMs as well. I rather regret it now. The name stuck too well. So what are these curious things? We got a colleague with another radio telescope to confirm that it wasn't some foible of my telescope. It really was out there in the sky. Could it be satellite in a funny orbit mimicking the sidereal day? Couldn't find a stable orbit, 23 hours, 56 minutes. We tried all sorts of crazy ideas as to what it might be. So no, it's not local radio interference. We've seen it with a separate telescope, but it's a rather puzzling signal. And then a colleague got a distance estimate, put it at 200 light years away. That's way beyond the solar system, but in terms of the Milky Way, our galaxy, quite nearby. I had nicknamed them Little Green Men, and we did wonder if it was Little Green Men, particularly when there was only one such source. If it was Little Green Men, they'd probably be on a planet orbiting their sun. Maybe we could see a Doppler shift in the pulse periods. So we started looking. But then I found the second and a third and a fourth. We didn't find any Doppler shifts due to Little Green Men. We did find a Doppler shift, however, due to the motion of the Earth round the sun, because Doppler shift works for the observer as well as the source. We were interviewed by many, many people. I found that a really disgusting experience. They would typically ask Tony, my supervisor, about the scientific significance of this discovery. And then they turned to me, wanted to know what my bust, waist, and hip measurements were, how many boyfriends I had, how tall I was, whether I would describe my hair as brunette or blonde, and was I taller than Princess Margaret or not quite. Young women were sex objects for the newspapers. And when the photographer asked me to undo some buttons on my blouse, I really, really objected. But there's not much you can do about it if somebody casts you in that role. And at that time, we're talking late 1960s, young women were sex objects. They weren't scientists. They didn't have brains. The actual name pulsar was coined by one of the more sensible newspaper interviewers, Anthony Michaelis from the Daily Telegraph. And we'd given some thought to what we were going to call these things. Were they pulsed radio sources or pulsating radio sources? We opted for pulsating because pulsed implies some agency making the pulses. And we didn't want to go down the LGM route. But pulsating radio sources wasn't short enough for Anthony Michaelis, and he came up with the name pulsar, which has stuck, as you know. Now, one of the lovely things about discovering pulsars is every so often somebody sidles up to me at a conference and says, you know, I nearly discovered pulsars, and tells me the story. And these stories reveal quite a bit. So I'm going to spend a certain amount of time telling you about people who nearly discovered pulsars and what they were doing and what they found. And the first one is in Texas, in the USA, McDonald Observatory. It's late summer 1957. It's a long time ago. MacDonald, who gave money for the observatory, insisted that the observatory had to be open to the public one night per month. And this is the open night. Elliot Moore is working at the observatory for the summer as an intern. He's just graduated with a physics degree from Chicago. And on this particular open night, the telescope is set on the Crab Nebula, and in particular on a funny star in the center of the nebula, known as Minkowski star. And members of the public would step up to the telescope and say, "Ooh, wow," or "Gee," or "How exciting," or whatever people said in those days. And a young woman stepped up to the telescope and said, "That star's flashing." And the night assistant started explaining about how stars twinkle. She said, "No, I know about scintillation. That star's flashing." Now, the Crab Nebula has a period of 33 milliseconds. It's going fast. But it used to be in Canada that the mains frequency was at 30 hertz. It was profoundly irritating to some people because they could see flashing at 30 hertz. Most of us can't, but some people can, and we know it from Canada. And Canada was ultimately obliged to go to a faster frequency. The people who can most often see flashing at 30 hertz tend to be young women. So I think it's quite likely that this young woman could see the Crab pulsar flashing at 30 hertz. She explained that her job was to fly newly built aircraft from the manufacturer to the customer. She flew at night. She knew about scintillation. She insisted that that star was flashing, not scintillating. Unfortunately, the observatory didn't think to follow up her observation. Somebody said they didn't have the right instrumentation. Elliot Moore thinks they just didn't try hard enough. So it wasn't followed up. But we now know that in the Crab Nebula, that Minkowski star flashes at about 30 hertz. The Australians received an interesting email relatively recently, after we had quite a number of pulsars, and the Australians had created a pulsar catalogue and put it online. And this gentleman, Charles Schisler, sent an email to the Australians saying he'd been a United States Air Force technician during the, forgotten when, 1967, 68. He'd been based in Alaska. It was often pretty quiet in Alaska. There weren't that many missiles coming in from Russia. And he was allowed to play around with the equipment. And he discovers, as he said, 14 pulsing signals, which weren't Russian missiles, which kept the 23-hour, 56-minute sidereal day. He had done an astronomy course when he was at college, and he knew about right ascension and declination, bless his college. And he made a recording or a record of the right ascension and declination as best he could of his pulsing sources. And now he's found the pulsar catalogue online, and he's comparing the pulsar catalogue with the positions he wrote down on a little piece of paper and illegally took with him when he left the military. And one of them is the Crab Nebula. He's very excited. A number of radio astronomers met with him. We believe he was absolutely genuine. And if it hadn't been for military secrecy, pulsars might have been discovered in 1967, as they were. So he wasn't allowed to publish, but he, as I say, he kept this bit of paper and got in confidence. So the first one that he discovered was the Crab Nebula. Says he's 81 when he made contact with the Australians, and this was 40 years ago, but he's incredibly excited. Another almost discovery is also around about 1967. It involves Sue Simpkin. Now, Sue Simpkin grew up in Canada. She grew up in Canada when their mains frequency was 30 hertz. She knows she can see 30 hertz because she was driven mad by the way all the lights and things flashed at 30 hertz in Canada in her childhood. At this particular point in life, also 1967, she's working in the optical and the ultraviolet. And she's got time on the big Kitt Peak telescope with a spectrograph. And a famous Dutch astronomer, Lo Vocher, asks her to take an ultraviolet spectrum of that funny star in the middle of the Crab Nebula. And Sue fits in this observation for him. And apparently it's quite a nice observation, Lo says. But Sue noticed as she was making this observation that it wasn't so much the star was peculiar, but that she could kind of see waves going out from it, quite fast waves radiating out. When she tells Lo this afterwards, Lo says, no, you're seeing things, can't be. But when it turned out that there was a pulsar in the crab flashing at that rate, Lo was man enough to say, yeah, you probably saw it, Sue, and she agreed. But at the time, they didn't do anything about this observation. And the final near miss is from radio astronomy, and I'm not going to name the lead observer because he was always very embarrassed by this. He's part of a group making a survey of the whole radio sky, both hemispheres, at 408 megahertz. They're using big telescopes, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, as and when they get time allocated on them. And they've almost completed the survey of the whole sky, but there's just a few little bits left to fill in. And they've got time on a big radio telescope, and they're hoping simply to complete those remaining fields. They believe they're in their last week of observing. This is also pre-computers. They're using pen recorders. One of the pen recorders is known to misbehave. It catches and jumps and catches and jumps. In the early hours of one morning in that last week, that pen recorder starts jumping, catching and jumping, catching and jumping. And it was quite rhythmic. And the observer, 3 o'clock in the morning, is not amused. And he does what we always did with sticky pen recorders. You thump it. So he thumped it and it started behaving properly. And he said, oh, good, and put on his coat and went home. And he didn't write anything in the log book. He had actually made the first observation of pulsar, we now know at quite high declination, 0329 plus 54, because that's where the telescope was pointing. We know that. But because there's no entry in the logbook, he can't claim it as observation of the pulsar. And that probably was observation of the pulsar, not the pen recorder misbehaving. What is also perhaps a little sad is following the discovery of pulsars, they didn't think to go back through all their records and see if they'd picked up anything. So anything of the known pulsars or any others, because 0329 was not one of the first ones found. So they could have claimed prior discovery if they'd gone back through their records. But they didn't, and such is life. The most interesting pulsar was the one in the Crab Nebula. And the Crab Nebula had been the subject of quite a lot of study. Why did it keep shining? The supernova that created it was a long time ago. It should have been dimming. It should be a lot dimmer by then. And Franco Pacini, who was an amazing astrophysicist, shortly before the discovery of pulsars, had a paper published in Nature, the top journal, explaining how the Crab Nebula could be energized by a neutron star with a large magnetic field which was inclined to the spin axis. This would give what's called magnetic dipole radiation at the rotation frequency. That frequency might not escape the plasma of the Crab Nebula. It would be dumped in the plasma and it would keep the nebula shining. And he was right on all those counts, except that at the point this paper was published, we hadn't found the pulsar in the Crab Nebula. It came along fairly soon afterwards. So Franco Puccini hit the right explanation for the Crab Nebula and indeed for pulsars prior to the discovery of pulsars. What were the factors that led to the discovery? I had my own telescope and receiver. I made jolly sure I understood how it worked. As a grad student, I had time in space to follow up the anomalies. I was also suffering from imposter syndrome. Cambridge was a really overawing place, and I was working very hard to compensate for imposter syndrome. This was the first observation of the right sort to pick up these kinds of signals. It helped that we were at a reputable laboratory. If you're going to make a rather staggering discovery, have a good address, folks. But increasingly these days, grants awarded, the usefulness, the successfulness is judged by whether you fulfill the objectives of the grant. This couldn't have been one of the objectives. If we'd computerized the search, we'd never have looked for this kind of thing because they didn't know it existed. And for a long time, lower frequencies and time domain have too long been neglected. But just in the last few years, there's great attention there. It's areas where there's a lot of exciting stuff coming in, and I commend that area to you if anyone's looking for a project. As I finished my PhD in Cambridge, I got married to a man who had to keep moving jobs to other parts of the country. There was a child arrived, and at that point in Britain, mothers weren't expected to work. Indeed, mothers were discouraged from working because it was proven that if mothers worked, children would be delinquent. If this was a live audience, I would now ask you how many of your mothers worked and how many of you are delinquent. And there'd probably be somebody on the back row putting their hand up. There usually is. So my career, so-called, was really a succession of jobs. We'd arrive somewhere, I'd find myself a job, climb up a ladder, and then after a few years, husband would say, it's time we moved, and I slid down a snake and had to find a ladder in the new place to climb up, and so on and so forth. So I've had a very funny career working in most branches of astronomy. Radio, millimeter, infrared, X-ray, and gamma ray. And I was lucky enough to often land in one of these branches of astronomy just as it was booming. So I got involved with an X-ray astronomy satellite that made discovery after discovery. I moved into infrared and got to work in Hawaii on Mauna Kea. I moved into millimeter wave astronomy just as it was starting up. So there's been a lot of excitement. But as a married woman, I've had to do all manner of jobs. And not all of them have been posh jobs, I have to say. But you make the best of them, whatever they are. So I've worked in Southampton, I've worked in part of UCL, I've worked in Edinburgh, I've worked in the Open University, I've worked in the University of Bath, and I had a sabbatical in Princeton University in the USA. So I've moved around geographically, I've moved around wavelength-wise. It's all been fun, I've been pretty lucky, and I hope it's that good for you. Who knows? But if you're in with this competition, you're clearly not stupid, to be sure. So maybe you'll go places too. And I hope you do. I hope you have fun in this competition. And I hope you have a really successful time afterwards. Thank you very much for your interest and your attention. And back to the chair.
I don't know if we need to close the screen. Yeah, there we go. Fab. Okay. So I would like to thank you very much for your talk and invite questions. You can send your questions on the Zoom chat, you can send them on the Discord, you can send them on the YouTube chat, and they will be collected and fed in so that we can ask them here. One question that we have had so far is, are there any unconfirmed anomalous observations in radio astronomy that you're excited about at the moment?
One of the things that I'm really very excited by is we've started moving into short timescale events. It used to be we had to integrate for quite a long time to get a reasonable signal, but as the equipment has improved, the integration times have shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And we are now discovering that there are a lot of, let's call them eruptive events, very short timescale spikes of emission from all sorts of objects. So this is a very hot topic at the moment. Still, I think a lot more to find. And that's an area that I'm watching with great interest.
Our second question is, what have you done to combat imposter syndrome since your time as a graduate student?
First thing is to swallow hard and put on a brave face. Actually, a lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome. They really rarely talk about it. So if people listening feel imposter syndrome sometimes, actually you are not alone by a very long chalk. But people do manage to hide it quite often because we are expected to be strong and upbeat and confident, aren't we? So we act it to the best of our ability.
Fab. Okay, let's keep questions coming in because I'm sure people have got lots of them and we could do with them. Okay, fab. Our third question is, when you got to like your third year of doing a PhD and then found this strange signal, was it a bit worrying that you didn't have much of your PhD left to do anything with it?
Yes, it was. And my supervisor said it was too late to change the title of my thesis. I think from what I now know of university systems, he was wrong. But at the time you tend to believe your PhD supervisor. But I was determined that the pulsars were going in somewhere, so they went in an appendix. And the appendix has been read far more than the thesis.
I'm sure that has, yeah. Fab. Have we got any questions coming in, please? Remember you can ask them here. Oh, here we go. Fab. Okay. Was there anything that drew you to radio astronomy when you were in your undergraduate degree?
Sorry, missed a bit of that. Was there anything
that drew you to radio astronomy when you were in your undergraduate degree?
I had actually decided I wanted to be a radio astronomer before I left school. I decided through reading one of Fred Hoyle's books that I wanted to be an astronomer. It was clear I was good at physics, and as I went through school, I was trying to work out what I might do with physics. I'd do a physics degree and then what? So I was on the lookout for things. And at the point in school where we were doing motion in a circle, I was reading at home a book by Fred Hoyle describing galaxies and how they rotated. And I could suddenly see that the physics I was learning in school could be applied to these big galaxies. So I decided I'd be an astronomer. Then somebody pointed out to me that you do astronomy at night. And this was bad news because I knew I needed my sleep. And so I thought, oh, I can't be an astronomer. And then somehow I got to hear of radio astronomy and astronomy at other wavelengths. And I said, I'll be a radio astronomer. So I went to university, deliberately not doing a rather boring astronomy degree, learning about right ascension and declination, but learning physics, which I think was definitely a right decision. You need a good physics base for many kinds of research. with the intention of being a radio astronomer.
Wow. Okay, Sheila Rowan would like to know, of all of the positions or jobs that you've had, do you have a favorite?
I think probably after radio astronomy, the most exciting was working in X-ray astronomy at Mullard Space Science Laboratory. My job there was actually on the technical staff. I was to look after, for everybody else, a new X-ray astronomy satellite, which launched very soon after I arrived. And my job was to make sure that the satellite was set up correctly to observe what the faculty, the grad students wanted to observe, to check the observations as they came in and then parcel them out. You know, here you are, Sheila, here's your data, its orbits numbers, blah, 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 to blah, blah, blah. And because I was checking the data as it came in, the first time I saw it, I really thought I was not up to the job, because there seemed to be two sources in the bit of sky we were observing. The one I expected we were observing and another one. And it turned out that actually I was right. A transient source not previously known had flared up. So I had to find somebody to look after the data on this transient source, as well as passing the data to the guy who had ordered the observations for his source. And then a few weeks later, I'm scanning the data as it comes in, and yeah, there's the source we're meant to be observing. Oh, here's another transient source. Oh, it's a bank holiday weekend, help! These transient sources kept appearing at Friday afternoons and preferably on bank holidays. So it was incredibly exciting, but actually quite manic, but huge fun. And I was right in the center of it.
That sounds amazing. Hannah Smelstich would like to know, what advice would you give undergraduate students, particularly women, who want to enter the field?
Right. You will probably be in a minority. You probably don't need telling that. But if you stay in Britain, as you go through your career, there will be more women. There will be more younger women coming through behind you. But the gender balance as you go through will be very much like the gender balance in your physics class at the moment. It's not likely to get better, to be honest, unless you can become a very successful academic, have your own research group and recruit lots of women, which might be a fun thing to do. So you will be in a minority, but the world has improved enormously and is continuing to improve. People are now acutely aware of gender issues, not just two genders, incidentally. And a lot of care is now being taken to make sure that everybody feels comfortable in the workplace. So although you will probably actually be in a minority, that shouldn't feel too uncomfortable, because everybody should be treating everybody else fairly and well.
Wow. Catherine McInroy would like to know, if you were finishing up your undergraduate in the field as it is today, what area would interest you most for postgraduate study?
It definitely would still be astronomy. And I think I'd go into somewhere where they had observational facilities or used observational facilities and used them to observe what we call transient, short duration things that flare up and die. It might be gravitational waves from merging black holes, merging neutron stars. It might be using a big new telescope in Chile that's about to come online, the Rubin telescope, particularly designed to pick up transient optical events. It's predicted to discover something like 1 million or maybe 10 million a night. So that's a hell of a lot of transients being discovered and information being emailed to other observatories around the world so as they can look at whatever that telescope picks up. But that Rubin telescope is going to be at the center of a lot of things in the very near future.
Oh, here's another one. I have got, what advice would you give to uni students coming from small countries that still don't have active research areas but want to work in such?
Yeah, it might be worth considering going abroad for a PhD and then going back home to start that kind of work in your country. You may be lucky enough to find a PhD place in your own country in an area you're interested in working in. That might be a bit of a long shot, which is why I'm saying consider going overseas. Sorry, that's an insular statement, isn't it? Overseas. Consider going abroad.
Okay. Our next question is, what would your advice be to students who are interested in astronomy in general, but do not know what to specialize in after their degree?
Right, that is a difficult one. I think it's important you find a thesis advisor that you like. So if there is an astronomer in your country that you really like or think you like, try approaching them, see if they'll take you on.
Okay, we have got time for a few more questions, so if anyone has any more, keep them coming. Again, you can send them on the Discord, you can send them on here, you can send them on the YouTube if you're watching that way. And let's wait and see if I get them. Do any of our committee have any questions that they would like to ask? Oh, fab, here we go. Okay, what was the most exciting part of your discovery, except of course for the discovery itself?
We kept fairly quiet about what we found until we were fairly sure it was real. And then it was real fun. You know, Tony and I would go into the canteen for tea, and there'd be another radio astronomer sitting somewhere at a table on his own, and Tony would say, "Shall we tell him?" I said, "Yes." And we go sit with this guy and tell him what we'd found. And watching people's jaws drop as we described what we had found was quite fun. But it also meant there were more people making suggestions about what other tests we could do, what we could look out for. So it was quite useful, but we didn't want to gossip too widely until we were fairly sure these things were real and not some funny sort of interference.
How far do you think we would be forward if these near discoveries were actually discovered in the 60s? Like, what else might we have discovered?
Right, well, there'd been a lot more radio astronomy stuff if they'd been found in the early 60s. So they'd have been studied for, you know, another 5 years or so compared with what they actually were. Although the radio telescopes, actually, maybe it wouldn't have made a huge difference, because it was only as bigger and better radio telescopes came online that we were able to do more. And of course, part of the case for big new radio telescopes was to study pulsars better. So I suppose they might have come a bit earlier. But yeah, maybe not as big a change as you think.
In terms of kind of keeping on top of the field in general, in astronomy, and kind of knowing what's out there, what sorts of techniques have you used in your career to do that?
Well, review talks are very useful. Often, if you go to a conference as a grad student or a postgrad, there'll be millions of talks, but there will be some what they call plenary talks, where an expert in the field is giving a talk, kind of reviewing it, saying where it is. And that's a very good way of learning. And if you can't get to a conference, you may be able to find paper published or web published versions of those talks. So that's a good way of learning a new field and what are the current issues in that field.
our next question is, if your discovery had happened today, do you think there was anything that you would change in your actions, or is there anything that would have been different? Like, how would it have been different?
If it had been discovered today, I wouldn't have felt so much a sort of lone female, because there would have been more women around, and I think I'd have felt in a stronger position. So I probably would have negotiated more strongly with my thesis advisor.
What advice would you give to the new generation of astronomers?
Well, first of all, go for it. Astronomy is fantastic. It's, I think, the best branch of physics by a large mile. So yeah, for heaven's sake, go for it. Pay attention to what the new things are happening around you, as well as doing whatever you're meant to be doing. And you'll have a lot of fun and a lot of excitement, and maybe even a bit of travel.
Sorry, I'm just trying to read them fast enough. Did you find any other interference later that you were hoping to be new discoveries that just ended up being interference?
No, I don't think so. I quickly got to recognize how pulsars differed from interference. There was one complication. The pulsar sometimes faded from sight and then came back again. And it is a scintillation phenomenon, but it's scintillation caused in the interstellar medium, in the space between the pulsar and our solar system. There's a certain amount of plasma milling around, and sometimes that plasma could stop the pulsar signal getting to Earth. So there were periods where the pulsars just went quiet. And it wasn't actually the pulsar, it was the interstellar stuff. So we're also now using pulsars to study this interstellar stuff.
How do you think the media reception would be different today? And has there been enough progress to appreciate women's contribution to science?
I think the media situation would be a lot better, but probably not perfect. I could imagine the odd question, why do you think a woman found these things? Or maybe even a girl found these things. It is a lot better, and it's actually changing very fast. But there's still page 3 in some newspapers. So there's still a bit of that.
When doing outreach, if you have a young audience, how do you describe what pulsars are to them?
I sometimes play an audio recording of a pulsar. It goes bump, 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 bump. It's basically attaching a loudspeaker to the radio telescope. And that's quite impressive. Some of them, like the crab, go so fast that they sort of whine. You don't hear the individual pulses. But that's one, particularly if you can hear the bump, 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 bump. I say that's a big star like the sun spinning very, very fast. And each time it spins, it's a bit like a lighthouse. The beam comes round and shines on you.
If Sherpaves would like to know, do you think we as humans will be able to achieve interstellar travel?
I suspect so someday. And when we do that, we will use the pulsars as interstellar navigation beacons. I think it was Pioneer satellites went out, they're now getting out beyond the galaxy. They have a plaque attached to them, which shows the position of the Earth or the sun relative to a number of pulsars. So already the idea that pulsars can be used for position finding is out there. And we're just waiting for, the little green men to pick up the satellite and invade Earth tomorrow.
We've got a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap up. So, how useful has collaboration been in your career and how has it changed?
I've worked in groups all my life. I wouldn't like to work on my own. Of course, working on your own is easier. You don't have to worry about other people's feelings, but I prefer working in a group in collaboration. So I think that's important. Different people in the collaboration will have different strengths. Somebody may be good at dreaming up wonderful theories, some of which will be right. Some may be very good at data analysis. Some might be very good at writing proposals. You need a whole range of talents to do research these days. So working in a group is usually the most efficient way to do it.
And our last question is, do you still use the tools that you were given when you started your PhD?
Yes, I do. I still have them and I still use them. They were the first tools I'd ever owned, so they're rather special. But yes, they're good quality tools. They're lasting well, thank you.
Fab. Okay, if you would like to turn your microphones on for a round of applause to thank Professor Dame Jocelyn Burnell, please do that. We would really appreciate that. And I'm going to start that. I hope people join in.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pass to Anthony, who is going to let us know what's happening next.
Am I? Yeah, hello. Thank you for the talk. Oh, Emma, I've left you a spotlight for everyone. There we go. I think this is fixed. I don't know what's going on. There we go. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the talk, and thank you, Professor Burnell, for giving us such a wonderful talk. What we're going to do now is we're going to join in some breakout rooms, and committee members will go in between them. And I believe, Alexia, there is one first game that we're playing, which is based off the talk title of the talk that we just heard, and there's some prizes up for grabs there. So I'm going to randomly assign people to breakout rooms. So please, oh, the recording's just stopped. Please go into those and hang about. And then after that, we have the quiz that will be on Gather, and there'll be £200 worth of book vouchers available for people to win there. So I'm going to create the breakout rooms now, and people can join them, stick around, talk to the organizing committee, talk to the volunteers, and then we'll move over to the quiz, and anyone that's having difficulty moving over to the Gather will give you a hand there. Okay, so right, automatically assign open rooms. Hopefully this will work. So if you join the rooms that you've been assigned to, and then committee members, if you make sure that you go into at least there's one committee member in each room, please, that would be great. And if I'm now the host. Brilliant. Thanks, Julian. And brilliant. So if Peter and Sarah, you want to join your breakout rooms, that would be great. Thanks.